Valentino Rossi, the face of MotoGP, turned his back on the most powerful team in MotoGP. Honda had it all: money, technology, dominance. But what they didn't have was loyalty. Because behind the trophies, the champagne, and the roar of the RC211V engine lay a betrayal so deep it changed the entire landscape of MGPTO forever. This is the explosive truth behind Honda's betrayal of Valentino Rossi. When Valentino Rossi joined Honda's premier class in 2000 with Honda machinery, he wasn't just another rider. He was the heartbeat of MotoGP. The energy he brought to the sport was unmatched. Every race weekend, every qualifying session, and every lap seemed to revolve around him. By 2001, the two-stroke era was fading, and Honda had prepared something revolutionary for the new age of racing: the RC211V, a 990 cubic centimeter five-cylinder beast that looked and sounded like it came from the future. The moment Rossi first rode that machine, something clicked deep inside him. It wasn't just another bike. It was alive, powerful, and waiting for the right hands to control it. And in Rossi's hands, it became a weapon of pure domination. The connection between man and machine was instant. Rossi understood what the RC211V wanted, and the bike responded like it was built just for him. In 2002, the results spoke for themselves. Honda destroyed the competition. Rossi wasn't just winning, he was rewriting what winning looked like. 11 victories in 16 races, lap records shattered, races won by massive margins. The rest of the grid looked helpless. And then in 2003, he did it all over again. 9 more wins, another world title. The Honda-Rossi partnership had become the gold standard of MGPT. It looked like perfection, the dream pairing, the unbeatable combo, Rossi and the RC211V. Every manufacturer wanted to know Honda's secret. Every rider dreamed of being in Rossi's seat. But beneath the confetti, champagne, and podium smiles, something else was brewing. A quiet tension, a feeling that not everything was as perfect as it seemed. Rossi began to hear whispers in the paddock. Mechanics, journalists, even rival teams saying things like, "Anyone could win on that Honda." The credit that should have been shared between man and machine started tilting heavily toward the machine. For Rossi, that cut deep. He had poured his soul into shaping the RC211V, fine-tuning its handling, giving feedback after every session, pushing its limits. And yet people were acting like he was just along for the ride. Imagine being the best rider in the world, dominating every race weekend, only to be told you're just a passenger on someone else's creation. To the outside world, Honda's engineering was the hero. Rossi, just lucky to have the best bike. That kind of talk didn't sit well with him. He knew his talent was the real difference. He knew that without his input, even the mighty RC211V wouldn't have been untouchable. And that belief, that need to prove his worth beyond the machine, was the spark that set everything in motion. Rossi was never just a racer. He wasn't the kind who simply rode fast and went home. He was more like an artist in a racing suit, always thinking, feeling, and fine-tuning every little detail. He wanted to be part of the process, to shape the bike and make it better. But Honda didn't see it that way. To them, Rossi was just another part of the machine. Replaceable, interchangeable. A tool to make the RC211V look unbeatable. They didn't see the human behind the helmet, just a number, a performer who did his job and collected trophies. Later, Rossi admitted how it really felt. He said Honda were not very nice. They thought he only won because he had the Honda. Honda's management had drawn a line. They didn't want Rossi to have too much say in development. They believed the engineers should lead, not the rider. In their minds, the bike was perfect because of their design, not his input. But think about this for a second. What happens when you take the most talented rider in the world, strip away his voice, and tell him he's replaceable? What happens when the man who defines MGPT starts to question if his own team respects him? When the time came for contract renewal, that question got its answer. Honda didn't approach it with excitement or gratitude. They came with arrogance. They basically told him, "We'll give you this money. It's the end of January. What else are you going to do?" That wasn't a negotiation, the kind of move that tells you exactly where you stand. Even legends have limits. Rossi looked around and realized the truth. He wasn't being valued anymore. To Honda, he was an employee, but to himself, he was the reason that machine was winning. And that's where it all shifted. You could almost feel the spark in the air. That quiet moment when pride turns into resolve. He wasn't angry, not yet, but something inside him had changed. What happens when the greatest rider of all time decides to walk away and beat his own team with someone else's bike? That was the moment betrayal turned into action. By late 2003, rumors were swirling everywhere. Rossi wasn't happy. You could feel it in his interviews, in the way he spoke about the team. Journalists laughed at the idea that he might actually leave Honda. Why would he? He had the fastest bike on the planet, the RC211V, a machine that dominated everything it touched. Walking away from that sounded impossible. He wanted to prove that it wasn't just the bike doing the winning. He wanted to show that he was the reason trophies were piling up. So he did the unthinkable. He left Honda. And not only that, he signed with Yamaha, a team that hadn't tasted a MotoGP title in over a decade. People said he'd lost his mind. The RC211V was a masterpiece, while Yamaha's M1 was average at best. But Rossi wasn't just changing bikes. And deep down, Honda believed he'd crash and burn without them. They thought he'd regret it. They thought his career would fade. But what they didn't realize was that Rossi wasn't running away from success. He was running towards something bigger, a chance to prove that greatness doesn't come from the bike. It comes from the rider. They were wrong. 2004, first race. Welcome, South Africa. Rossi's debut with Yamaha. The entire world was watching. Would the underdog Yamaha even finish the race? The odds were stacked against them. Honda had the fastest bikes, the most advanced engineers, and endless resources. Yamaha? A struggling team that hadn't tasted victory in years. Their M1 was slower, unstable, unpredictable. But Rossi didn't care. He wasn't there for comfort. He was there to prove something the world had forgotten. The talent could still beat technology. As the lights went out, Rossi exploded off the line. Wheel to wheel with Max Biaggi, his old rival on a Honda, every corner became personal. The RC211V had power, but Rossi had heart. Lap after lap, the gap closed. The Yamaha twitched, slid, screamed, yet he never backed off. Then in the final laps, Rossi attacked. He crossed the line first. He jumped off the bike, dropped to his knees, and kissed the Yamaha's fairing. That wasn't just a win, it was a revolution. The man Honda said was nothing without their bike had just beaten them with their own blueprint. That victory in Welcome wasn't only about speed, it was about pride and payback. He went on to win 9 races that season, claiming Yamaha's first MotoGP championship in over a decade. From 2004 to 2010, Rossi turned Yamaha into something big. 4 world titles, countless podiums, rivalries that defined an era. Stoner, Lorenzo, Pedrosa. He brought life to the garage, laughter to the paddock, and hope to fans who loved the underdog story. And Yamaha never forgot. They didn't just gain a champion, they gained a symbol. Rossi didn't just race for them. He gave them a new identity. He proved that with the right spirit, even a broken machine can fly. Honda couldn't believe it. They'd built a dynasty. In their own creation, the RC211V was now losing to a bike led by the man they drove away. Without Rossi, Honda still had power, but it didn't have a soul. The RC211V continued to win some races, sure, but the era of dominance was gone. Because what Honda didn't understand was that Rossi wasn't just riding the bike, he was shaping it. He helped with every small part of the bike. You can copy the machine, but you can't copy the man. Over time, even Honda started to acknowledge it. In later interviews, they thanked Rossi, calling him the spark that defined a generation. But by then, the damage was done. Rossi's move to Yamaha didn't just change teams, it changed everything people thought. When Valentino Rossi left Honda, it wasn't just a transfer, it was a reset button for MotoGP itself. Before Rossi, the sport was a science. Engineers ruled the garages. Riders were expected to adapt, obey, and execute. But Rossi walked in and flipped that script. He brought personality into a paddock full of numbers and graphs. Suddenly, MotoGP wasn't only about speed, it was about stories. He smiled on the grid, joked with rivals, celebrated with cartoon helmets, and turned every win into theater. For the first time, people weren't just cheering for machines, they were cheering for a human being. He made MotoGP fun again. Fans could feel his joy, his frustration, his fear. They could see the man behind the visor, and that changed everything. Honda had no idea that Rossi wasn't just being stubborn, he was changing everything. He didn't ruin MotoGP's system, he made it better in his own way. When he left, he took something no team could ever copy, his own style and spirit. Before Rossi, most riders were soldiers following orders. After him, they became storytellers, entrepreneurs, and heroes with their own brands. The yellow flags, the 46 stickers, the fans dressed like him in every country. They weren't just fandom. Rossi created a community. And maybe that's the real legacy. Not the wins, not the records, but the connection. Because long after the engines cool and the trophies fade, what stays is how a rider made you feel. What if Rossi's greatest victory wasn't the race he won, but the world he built around him? Because what happened next showed just that. By 2005, Rossi wasn't just a racer, he was a phenomenon. He laughed through pressure, waved at fans mid-race, and treated every lap like a performance. Reporters called him the doctor, but fans saw him as something more, the soul of MotoGP. And that energy spread. Riders who came after him, Marquez, Quartararo, Bagnaia, all grew up watching Rossi not just win, but feel. He showed that it's okay to have feelings in a serious sport. He proved you can be tough and still have fun. You can lose a race and still make everyone love you. That's the thing about Rossi. He wasn't trying to fight the system. He was just trying to make it more real, more human. But make no mistake, none of this came easy. The years after his move weren't all fairy tales. There were crashes, doubts, and dry seasons. Every time he came back, every time he stood on the podium after failing, it showed something bigger than just speed, that real greatness isn't a straight road, it's a fight. And Rossi never stopped fighting. He didn't just show MotoGP how to win, he showed everyone how to lose with pride and still stand tall. Over time, even Honda changed. The same team that once treated him like a replaceable part slowly realized that riders aren't just data points. They're dreamers. They're the heartbeat of the machine. And though they never said it outright, every respectful nod, every reunion handshake years later, carried a quiet truth. They needed him as much as he once needed them. Rossi also changed what it meant to grow old in MotoGP. Most riders fade quietly. He refused. Even in his 40s, he was laughing in the paddock, mentoring young riders, and creating the VR46 Academy, a school for the next generation. Through that, he didn't just pass on skills, he passed on his stories. To trust your instincts, to find joy in chaos, to never let data replace emotion. And that's why, even when he wasn't winning, the grandstands were still painted yellow. Because for the fans, Rossi wasn't about speed anymore. He was about spirit. Before him, it was a competition. After him, it became a culture. When Rossi took that final lap in 2021, something beautiful happened. Every team, even Honda, stood and applauded. Riders he once fought against had tears in their eyes. Because everyone knew what he'd done wasn't just win races. He'd changed how the world saw racing. By the time Rossi stopped racing, MGPT wasn't the same anymore. Riders had their own style. Fans followed their stories, not just who finished first. The pit lane had life, energy, and emotion. Even sponsors realized it wasn't just about selling bikes, it was about selling dreams. And the man who changed it all? The same one who left comfort behind to be true to himself. In the end, Rossi's story wasn't about revenge or ego. It was about growing for him and for MotoGP. He showed that racing isn't just a fight between machines, it's about courage, connection, and heart. He started as a racer and ended as a storyteller. Valentino Rossi's legacy isn't just written in trophies, it lives in every rider who dares to dream, and every fan who still cheers for the number 46. Rossi didn't just race, he inspired millions to chase their own finish lines. If you felt that spark, don't just scroll, hit the like button, drop a comment about your favorite Rossi moment, and share this video with someone who loves MGPT as much as you do. And of course, subscribe for more stories about legends who changed the game.